just a couple quick norms for you. Respect and power include. Just be respectful of the other attendees in the space. Be present. We want you to engage in conversations. Engage with one another in the chat, but also be mindful of how you participate. Make space, take space, and so making sure that we're giving opportunity for other voices to participate. Use a video if you can. We love to see your faces and it helps us put a name to the face. And so excited to dive in. And now I get to turn it over to the one, the only Deborah Cohen to take us through social media for GOTV. And I'll be around. This isn't the last you've heard of me.
Yes, Santiago is coming back, but keeping you on your toes as to when. Great to see everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to social media for GOTV. Myra, we're good on the recording. Um, so for today, in the hour we have together, we're going to understand the role and goals of social media during GOTV, learn the mindset shifts you need to make to get ready to rule the internet for your campaign. Identify four key steps to take now to prepare for GOTV, and gather resources for you to use during GOTV. We're going to drop a bunch of stuff in the chat, and then we'll also send the links around in a recap email. So don't stress too much about that. So what is GOTV? Let's drop some in the chat. What does GOTV mean? I have a t-shirt that says GOTMFV. You can determine what you think that means for yourself. Get out the vote. Awesome. So before we dive into exactly what that means and what social media will be doing, we want to get a sense of the room and run a poll and just see what are folks' experience with GOTV. So Myra, we're gonna launch the poll. We love voting here. Let's get to more than 50% voting. We'd love 100% participation. Votes are coming in. Stay in line if
Coming
you're
in
in
hot.
line.
Everybody's voted.
Okay, crushed it. Almost 76% participant. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, a lot of people have volunteered. Many people have worked during GOTV. A smaller group have been in leadership roles, and some folks are new. So we have a good spread. So there's a lot to learn from each other. And if you've never volunteered doing GOTV, it might be interesting to hear the perspective of someone who has volunteered. If you've never been in a leadership position, it's good to hear what's going on in the boiler room and the back room. So GOTV stands for Get Out the Vote. It starts when early vote starts. In exciting news, we've won a lot of victories lately in the last decade, and early vote is more common in states. If you know when early vote starts in your state or on your campaign, drop that date in the chat. And if you don't know, it's a great time to look it up and start to consider, because that's when people can start voting. In states that don't have early vote, GOTV typically is officially, the last 4 days close to the election is like the real prime time. If you have early voting, you have a lot more time to be getting people out to the polls. October 15th in North Carolina, that's 2 months away. October 19th, October 6th. October is our month, which is awesome. October 19th in Arkansas. Awesome. And during GOTV, I think it can be sometimes hard to understand just how much more the exponential growth that happens in all facets. There's exponential more money is donated to campaigns and spent on campaigns. Exponential more volunteers show up. I've been on campaigns where it was a grind to get people to come out to weekend canvases, and I didn't even really understand early on what I was doing and why I was standing up locations and holding these canvases. And then during GOTV, hundreds of volunteers showed up at our staging locations, and we had to totally reorganize our operation. And there's just way more eyes on your campaigns. I like to think about a lot of voters. If you're not a football fan, imagine how you feel around the Super Bowl. You might know the date of the Super Bowl. You might know who's playing. You probably don't know the names of the quarterbacks. Lots of people start to dial in during GOTV and look up candidates for the first time, figure out what they can vote for the first time. Some people are learning that information on election day or the week before. They haven't been in the weeds with you. And so those are all things to kind of just keep in mind. You have obviously, if you're working on a campaign or involved in politics, have been thinking about this nonstop. But that's kind of your audience and who you're thinking about here. But we're here to talk about digital and social media and what is the role of social media during GOTV? Go ahead and drop in the chat if you have ideas. Getting the message out, accurate information, bugging your friends, turn out voters, educate voters, excitement, motivated to vote. Awesome. So, all of that is right. But broadly think about social media during GOTV as giving people the information they need to vote. A lot of people rely on social media as their main source of information. You know, huge numbers of Americans get their news on social media. They might be more likely to look up your social media account over your website and be using it just as a place to find out voting information or like learn who your candidate is. You want to be constantly introducing or reintroducing your candidate and reminding people that they stand for X, they care about these things, and they're trusted because of X. It might be someone might like have, realize the election is happening. They're trying to figure out how to vote for, they go to your page. You want to help them understand who you are. And during GOTV, you do move away from persuasion towards turnout. But online and in this ecosystem we're living in, you are sort of always doing a little bit of persuasion and some the introducing your candidate and that part is part of that, like people who are low information voters, just kind of constantly reintroducing your candidate. We'll talk more about how to do that. You want to create FOMO. Your campaign is fun, vibrant, and everywhere. You want to be responsive to people in the news cycle where you're strongest. So, obviously, lots and lots, the Republicans will hone in and attack, run all kinds of attacks, and that will be both grounded in absolutely hearsay as we get closer and closer to the election. And so, you want to pick and choose. But if there is accusations or attacks that people are starting to believe, you want to be out there pushing back on those things and putting out what's strong about your candidate. And you want to keep doing what's working. If you have content that has worked well, if you like language that has done well in polls or at the doors or on past posts, you want to keep using that. And this is a time where you really want to close the loop between your field program and your digital program. What are people saying at the doors? And if everyone is suddenly bringing up flock cameras at the doors and that hasn't been a part of your message, you got to figure out how, don't ignore that. You want to figure out how to get that information up on your social media and be responsive. Similarly, if people are putting a bunch of stuff in the comments or about something they're concerned about, or if there's something that's really working online, you want to feed that back to your field team. So we're going to talk a little bit about approvals processes and changes, but a lot of GOTV is about tightening your structures, tightening your communication, and making things move faster, including that feedback loop through different departments. Generally, your mindset shifts and strategy shifts are you're going to make more content, you're going to make content faster, increase content about your volunteers. You may not have been posting a ton about volunteers throughout the election. You might have been talking a lot about your candidate or your issues. Again, this is a time to show your campaign is everywhere. It's exciting, it's fun, people want to be a part of it. You want to expand your messengers, get validators like unions or other candidates, trusted community members, influencers, also posting about your candidate and your campaign. And you do want to move from persuasion to turnout. We talked a little bit about not fully moving away from that. And it can be stressful to hear more content faster. And so not everything has to be like a highly produced video or the best thing ever. You can repost content, you can do graphics, you can use content from other sources, which we'll talk about in a minute. And part of planning for GOTV is like assessing how do you actually execute more content faster without doubling your staff. And that means getting creative about like what you can do quickly and putting energy towards stuff that takes a little longer, very strategically. So our newest nominee in Michigan, Abdul Saeed, ran an incredible GOTV social media program. Meyer's going to drop the link to his Instagram. I would just check it out. It has everything we just touched on. And here's some samples. He's reintroducing himself constantly. He has unions and different validators who he's doing cross posts with. And that means content about him is getting out to their audiences, but also people are seeing these trusted messengers vouch for him. He shows volunteers, 10,000 doors a day and makes it exciting. And I don't know if anyone's here from his team. I'd be super interested to hear like how many people were working on this and what it actually took because they did produce like a huge amount of content. Not everyone is a Senate campaign, not everyone is as charismatic as he is online. So work within your constraints. But this is like a good playbook of to go look at like what you could be striving for. And if you see something that you like, just copy it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Anyone have other favorite candidates or organizations that have done effective social media? Drop in the chat links or yeah, Mamdani, Talarico. If you have any links to anything, feel free to share those with the group as well. Um, awesome. So now we're going to talk about 4 steps to take to prepare for GOTV. So awesome, Danielle, if you have the link, that would be great. So write these down. This should be your to-do list for the next, if early vote starts in October for most of you, you have time to start thinking about how you're going to do these things. You want to modify your approval process. You want to check with your lawyers and your compliance team. Like sometimes there's compliance things to take super into consideration as you get close to election. Just um, understand the legal and compliance environment. And I recommend having one call where if you figure out what are the main things you need to be considering on those fronts so that you don't have to talk to compliance or lawyers every time. And then you want to make this approval process as tight and as fast as possible. What's the fewest number of people that need to be involved? What's the expectations of the approvers? Is it on text? Is it on Slack? Is it on email? Are there people who you don't necessarily need to hear from before you post, and there's people you definitely need to, and sort of setting up basically your digital war room. It probably won't be a literal war room for the whole month and a half of GOTV, but think about what's been clunky, what's not been working, and fix that. You want to gather existing resources from your campaign and your ecosystem. The exciting thing about GOTV is lots and lots of organizations that are IEs and nonprofits and PACs are creating like good content that you can just use. And I'll show you some of that in a minute. Um, so this is a good time to like connect with your partners or your allies or unions or local organizations that have endorsed you and see what they're making and if you can repost or post together. And then you also want to do an audit of like what has been working on your campaign, which post did really well, where did your candidate like talk about their core values. Clipping is all the rage right now. Is there a time that they were on media on TV where they said something great? Can you get a clip of that? Just think about what you already have that you can make the most of, and what you need to do to get that sort of organized. You want to engage your volunteers, create materials for them to share with local amplifiers, um, social media toolkits, sample language. You also want to make it easy for them to take photos and share photos with you, make like a shared Google photo album, a way for that feedback loop for them to create content for you. And finally, you want to backwards plan and make a content calendar and build out some templates and think through those points so that you're not caught off guard by the various things that happen during GOTV. And a big part of GOTV is being ready to intake unexpected things. And so the more you can have prepared and the more you can have kind of systematized, then it's easier to adjust and adapt. So step one is to modify your approval process. This is an example of approval process. I think approval processes for digital content are probably not going great in most places. They take a long time. It can be unclear. But think about from the time you make content, does the campaign manager need to approve it? Does the candidate need to approve it? Are there lawyers? And also, is there a certain kind of content that the candidate doesn't need to see? Is there a certain amount of content that maybe even the campaign manager doesn't need to see? Are there things that can get pre-approved so that you can move quickly? And then what are the things that you need to double check on and consider there? And now back to the stage, I welcome Santiago to share a story about approval processes.
Yeah, this comes from 24, and here I am in an undisclosed location in the voter protection boiler room doing a Trent Krim independent impression. And we did not do the step where we adjusted our approval process. It actually came like sort of midstream. A lot of approval processes were being handled via Signal, and the disappearing messages were like over the course of time, we were actually losing track of like what had been approved or what hadn't been approved that was still outstanding. So like we sort of streamlined everything into one document, made a checklist of like who are the people who absolutely needed to sign off, and then who are the people whose perspectives we needed to get so that we could templatize something that was easy to adapt and approve because we were getting information about polling location, uh, sort of times for opening, changing or hours being extended. And so we needed to sort of plot out for those different scenarios and making sure that like we could get that information out to voters as quickly as possible via all the different digital channels, text messages and things, and making sure that we could do that and turn it around very quickly. And so part of that was understanding what our different stakeholders wanted to see in content and adjusting sort of our templates to match that so that they could take themselves out of the approval process because they felt good about it. Also, making sure that we understood from a legal compliance side, like what could we say and how could we make sure it still felt human and natural for us to be disseminating that information. Deborah, back to you. What are we gathering up?
Awesome. Um, and I think that is a great addition to the role of social media during GOTV is voter protection and voter disenfranchisement and having a plan for if a polling place is closed or the wrong ballots are there, what how you're going to kind of amplify that online. And a huge part of like that sort of under discussed or sometimes can be difficult to execute is sort of the coalition building and the partnership online. So thinking about who can help you amplify, who can co-post things, that kind of thing too, and how you're communicating. Do you create a signal chat or an email chain uh, to navigate voter protection issues as well? Not necessarily on the legal side, but on the stay in line, this location has moved, etc. So these are just a sampling of resources. Myra's going to drop them in the chat. If you have others, would love to hear from them. We've got iwillvote.com, we've got Ballot Ready, you've got the National Voter Protection Hotline. I think there's even more resources like that that are just like generally about voting that having on hand, and you don't have to create a polling place lookup. You don't have to know all that stuff, but you can amplify these things. And then our friends at Into Action Lab, I don't know if anyone is here, make GIF content constantly every day about this is a great resource, not just during GOTV. They make GIF content that's about topical, progressive and left-wing issues constantly that you can use, and it's free. And there's also a Slack community you can join. And I haven't engaged in a little bit, but in the past, you've been able to like ask for help making graphics too. I don't know, they're not a design firm or going to do free consulting work, so I think they're more likely to like make something that is useful to a broad group of people versus like something about your campaign specifically. But highly recommend joining that Slack, getting in there, and just having that as like an additional piece of content that you don't have to make yourself. And their stuff is really great. If anyone has additional place like pre-made content or resources, would love to see them in the chat as well. So a couple ideas, and feel free to drop in your ideas. But another like way to think about existing resources is where are people already spending time that you can go find them at. So recommend finding statewide Reddit threads or Facebook groups to post about voting your candidate. It's less likely that you'll have success posting like specifically about your candidate in these forums. A lot of them have uh, rules about that. But if you can create, like, even just if it's a left-leaning, if you're in a left-leaning city or a part of the state or it's a neighborhood Facebook group, just simple information about voting can go a long way. Or, I think finding a topical issue, flat cameras are obviously like popping and are the kind of thing that are happening in those groups, and like sharing your candidate's stance on that kind of stuff is a good way to just reach more people, like use that existing megaphone. And this is also a great thing for volunteers to do who already have Reddit accounts and spend time on the local Democratic, Evanston Reddit, or who are already in those Facebook groups. And it's not necessarily coming from the campaign. Um, the other idea I want to recommend on this is reposting content and adding Q&A subtitles and some additional content. So if you have a clip from your candidate on a TV show where they really outlined their point clearly, or if you have um, a great direct-to-camera video where they're introducing themselves, repost that and add a little video subtitle over it with information about voting, or like just a little bit of change, but you don't have to like reposting content. Content is constantly reposted and refarmed on the internet, and you don't have to feel like, oh, I already used that, I shouldn't do it again. And now we're going to watch an example of a candidate who's doing a really good job of sort of reintroducing himself on social. Okay, can I?
Time ticks by.
So super easy, like it's just a bunch of screenshots and it someone commented Gen X on that song and text over it, and it's just kind of laying out the case really clearly. And so someone who's new to his page or hasn't been paying that much attention can just see that and like understand what's happening and why they might support him. Or his followers and supporters can share that to their feed and just like show their friends and their community what who he is and why they should vote for him. And so this did not like, probably took some time, but is not highly complicated. They didn't have to reshoot a video. And you just want to be constantly thinking about how are you telling people who your candidate is, what they stand for, and why they should vote for them, and why they're trusted. Okay, we've talked a little bit more about some other resources in the ecosystem. I think some people dropped the Pod Save America Slack and a couple other things. So maybe Myra, if you can grab some of those that were shared, we can make sure to share them out in the recap email. Okay, step two, I think. Three, we're on three. Engage your yes, we did approvals processes, existing resources. Now we're engaging your volunteers. So this is a great time to talk to your organizing team, talk to your field team. Maybe you guys you're living in a beautiful world where those teams are already talking and organized. If you are, let us know how it's going. You want to create a way for volunteers to share photos and videos and encourage them to take lots of photos and videos. So make a way like a shared album that they can share things to, or an email they can send them to, and have that be part of the instructions at the Canvas launch. Um, I even have had a huge amount of success doing like scavenger hunts where you say like as you're canvassing, take a photo like getting into your car and a photo in front of a local coffee shop and a photo of this. Not all volunteers can handle learning scripts, talking to voters, and a photo scavenger hunt, but maybe some can, and that can be like a fun competition to add. It's great to do with fellows and interns too. Create social media toolkits and template language. And I'd recommend making toolkits about your candidate. And those toolkits can literally just be your best content saying reshare this, or it could be like content for them to put in their own voice. And I'd also recommend giving them non non maybe nonpartisan or non-candidate specific language that they can share. They might feel more comfortable sharing with people who are probably like-minded, but they're not necessarily like talking about a candidate. Um, and I didn't finish the sentence. It said, ask your volunteers to find forums, newsletters, people who already have megaphones that either they can share stuff to, or you can just be on the campaign's radar. There are tons of local newsletters, in the parent world, there's all kinds of like local newsletters about parents events and this account and the school, like at universities, there's all kinds of newsletters. Everyone has a newsletter. Are there people who are willing to post, like add a little section at the bottom of their newsletter about voting? Are there small local businesses that have supported things like Pride in the past, who might talk like who your volunteers can connect you with. They're living in the community, they have relationships. Bring that offline to online, and online to offline. This is that moment. Um, and help use them to engage your volunteers to find local trusted messengers. And also, maybe some of your volunteers are local trusted messengers. Maybe some of them are reverends or small business owners that you can ask to go a step further and post to their account. Um, so some ideas. We already talked about the nonpartisan language. Uh, And then another idea, if you haven't started a creators program yet, it can be tough. Creators like to get paid. So maybe you have budget for that. And our friends at Social Current are great if you're looking to find creators. I think Myra can drop that link, surprise link. Social Current. And but it can be difficult to establish a relationship with a creator and have them post as you get closer and closer to GOTV. So one thing to do is think about who is already kind of in your networks or in your volunteer or in your community who you can kind of ask to post or do something jointly that benefits them as well. So for example, could you launch a canvas from a popular local coffee shop and ask the owner to do a joint post? And maybe you buy everyone coffee at the coffee shop for the launch, and then you getting a community validator who people trust, their megaphone on their social media accounts, and also people have coffee. This is just one idea of like how do you integrate online to online and be thinking about what like can be exciting offline that looks good online. Mamdani obviously crushed this and like did all kinds of things that were really engaging the community, looked fun and exciting, were engaging people locally, and looked great online. Getting to that volume of events would be very difficult, but even just a couple times and working with the organizing team is a great step. Okay, we're going to look at some examples of making volunteer hype content.
Come to an Uncle Dust. Hi guys! Come to an Uncle Dust for Jason User.
Hey, we're dropping Arna off so she can go to her houses down here, and now me and Avni are gonna drive to our houses.
We just dropped Arna off at her street, and now we're down this street, and we're about to do our houses. Yep, we'll update when we're halfway through. Okay, bye! Guys, we were just doing a few of our houses, and I guess we're bad at navigating, but we just ran into our pal over here.
Oh my gosh, Arna, say hi. Hi. Midway
Yeah,
meetup.
halfway update.
How's it going? Arna?
It's good.
We're not getting a lot of door answers, but that's okay. You know what? We still have a lot of hope. Hopefully the next half, we have a lot of lively conversations.
So we just finished up our turf with Jason Heiser and Kelly Morrison. The conversations were looking pretty good on the doors.
And we were so happy to bring you guys along.
Bye!
Okay, we're going to watch one more and then we can talk about them. Okay, so the first one is a little more scripted. I don't know if they actually scripted it out, but they like took B-roll and talked to the camera and then cut it together, and then they added subtitles over it. So this is like a little more effort, and I think this group seemed like it maybe made their day canvassing more fun and interesting to make this content. And then the second one, someone just got B-roll, like they had to remember to film these different moments. But this wasn't like posed. These are like a lot of these things were sort of happening, and then they just put one piece of text over uh the video. So this is like a little bit of an easier example. They both look fun, they make canvassing seem accessible, and it looks like people are out and supporting the candidate. Okay, step 4, backwards planning and content calendaring. I'm going to pass it over to Santiago to talk about this.
Yeah, it's just super important, as you're doing your planning for GOTV and thinking about moments on social and the things that you want to amplify. Like one of the tools in our toolbox is this backwards planning content calendar where you can think about all the different aspects of your campaign. And this is a very holistic look at like all the things that you could potentially plot out on a calendar. Everything from key dates, when do ballots drop, when do ballots need to be returned, but also the internal dates that your campaign will generate around when are you having a GOTV training? When are you going to be having a day of action? When is your candidate going to be in certain places? And this can be really helpful in terms of identifying key moments to either disseminate information to your organizing team or identify moments where people might be in position to collect really good content that you might want to amplify on social media. And so, these are a way of like, sort of in a very easy spreadsheet form, start to identify, when are these things happening and when are they happening just across the campaign and not just thinking about sort of like social media on its own, thinking about it fully integrated with what else is happening on the campaign, I think is a way that you can make sure that like you're creating content that is helpful to all parts of the campaign, and also isn't just an afterthought. And you can be sort of front and center and thinking about, these things proactively.
And if you've been working in digital for a while, you might know that sometimes digital starts planning way before everyone else does, and it can be like a bit of a fight to get everyone to start thinking about this, um, or they might be taken off guard or not ready. And so, ideally, if that's happening, you put a meeting on the calendar and you actually help your team start doing the planning they need to be doing. If that's not your reality, you can even do a little bit of guessing and like. Um, Typically, polls will open, this will happen, and then adjust the calendar, and it can help you think about content you might need to make or collect. Additionally, like this is a little bit of a run of show, like all of these things happening could make great content. Like the literature arriving at the office is like a great video, or people packing the lid, or the first door hanger that hits a door, or the voter protection hotline, or like meet the lawyers, are all things that could make content that you're not having to like invent, that you can just like get video of or show up for. And we have a bunch of different calendars in the toolbox. There's the GOTV calendar, which is what we're looking at, I believe. And this has like instructions for how to think about all of GOTV. We have a digital content calendar that you could use anytime during any part of your life in digital. So you could apply that to GOTV if you wanted to like have a specific calendar. And then we also have a campaign calendar that's designed more to start like earlier than GOTV as a backwards planning, but those are all resources for you to check out and explore and kind of like adapt for whichever one works best for you. To help you out, I think one of the keys to backwards planning is templatizing things. You are the first to know. We have a new tool in the toolbox brought to you by the one and only Myra, and they are GOTV graphic and video templates brought to you by this AI kitty cat. Put a cat emoji if you like this video GIF, or a dog emoji if it creeps you out in the chat. But in all seriousness, these are okay. We got one for the dancing cat AI Pixar situation. Um, Team cat. I have two cats, so I'm all in. So when you go to the tool and download it, you can open Canva templates where you can edit. So these are not necessarily like exactly what we think you should do or anything, but these are just quick templates that in Canva you'll be able to edit where it says final weekend door knock. If those of you are from Texas, I hear you call them block walks. You can change that. You can change your URL, change the name of your candidate, obviously put the photo of your candidate here. And Canva templates are super easy to use. Myra, do you need to have a pro account to use them? No. Okay. So you can sign up for Canva for free, open these and edit them as a great place to start. Canva also has tons and tons of other templates you can edit, and they do have some voting ones, but they're not flawless. So download this, open up Canva, and start to think about using these, and also other things you can template out so that you might post something and polls close in 3 hours, or if you're in line, stay in line. Like it's not, you can just make those when you have downtime, so you're not making them in the heat of the moment. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our new reality, well, our old reality of SEO and our new reality of AEO. Does anyone know what AEO is? Put it in the chat. I guess it's here on the screen. Never mind. So AEO is answer engine optimization. It is the practice of improving how often and how accurately you appear in AI-generated answers on bots like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. I think there is a growing, we know there is a growing use of these bots, and this will be, one of the first elections where people are earnestly using these bots to ask who they should vote for. And then SEO is the practice of improving a website so it shows up higher on free search results like Google. This has been going on forever. Okay, SEO, the great news is there's still time. So I think Democrats are like pretty bad at SEO, and it's devastating. So be the change. If you're search your campaign and see what comes up, and do it in incognito. Ask your mom to do it. Ask other people just to like get a full picture. And if your website or information about you is not popping up first, if like weird information about your candidate is popping up first, if information ads for your opponent is popping up first, it's a little too late to like really improve your organic SEO. SEO is an art that involves like understanding Google and to some extent being in other short search platforms algorithms and priorities and having lots of content on the internet that brings you up high in search results. Ideally, you've been thinking a little bit about this until now, but it's okay if you haven't because you can buy search ads and they are cheap and they're easy to run and you should be running them probably even if you are doing a good job on SEO, but definitely if you aren't. So that's great. If your AEO is bad, the answer like currently isn't that obvious. Everyone is still kind of figuring it out. So the first thing you want to do, yeah, Andre, SEO takes time to be successful, but you can buy search ads in mere minutes if you want to. First thing to do, open up or have a volunteer or someone open up, the main AI bots and just search your candidate and like see what comes up, do a couple searches and see if anything's popping. If it's not going great for you, if it's not there's no like super obvious solution right now. And again, this is the kind of thing that takes time. But there are a couple steps you can take. One is to add FAQs to your website. The bots love question and answer format. So especially if there are things like issues that are really popular or like popping, like is it immigration, is it abortion access, is it groceries, is it flood cameras? Add FAQs to your website that just clearly ask that question and then state the answer under it. And the way you want to write those is the way a human would write it. So like, what is Deborah's stance on flood cameras? And then under it, you want to answer the question really succinctly in the first two sentences, and then you could add more context. And you want it to be able to, you want the bot to be able to skim that. The issue is it's still like, the bots are still like preferencing content that has been around longer or that it deems reliable, etc. So that may not solve all your problems. You also could make social media content that's like, hey, the ChatGPT is spreading fake news about our campaign. And go from there. I'd love to hear if anyone else has thoughts on this. But it is an interesting dynamic that's going to happen. The other thing is the bots like super prioritize YouTube right now. They're prioritizing press. They're prioritizing kind of a lot of things that SEO or just like good internet a human might prioritize to some extent, not always. So if there is ways you can like increase your earned media, get stuff up on YouTube, get video content up, answering the questions, adding more just question and answers is another potential solution. And it'll be really interesting to kind of see what we learn this cycle on this. So we're gonna watch an example of a FAQ video. Maybe. Devastating. Okay. Nice.
Absolutely.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash.
Ooh, why do you care so much about Medicaid?
I was raised on Medicaid. It's deeply personal for me, and now Donald Trump and Gabe Evans are trying to destroy it to give tax breaks to their billionaire buddies.
Push-ups or pull-ups?
Pull-ups.
What makes Congressional District 8 so special?
The people. I mean, it's a vibrant community. It's diverse. It's one of the most diverse in the entire state, in the entire country, and they're kind, generous folks that are trying to get ahead, but Trump is trying to destroy everything, whether it's their economy or their democracy.
Do you do any impressions?
Let me be clear.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of Donald Trump continuing to destroy our democracy and our economy and making life impossible for working people and Latino immigrants across the country.
Do you use sunscreen?
Absolutely. We are a mile closer to the sun here in Colorado.
Any final words to the folks watching?
Well, this is an extremely important race. Get out there and vote. Please volunteer, donate. You can go to manningforcolorado.com to join the fight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is also pretty easy to make. We did a training a couple months ago about making vertical video for the internet. And one of the things is you have to get on the candidate to do this, you have to get on the candidate schedule. So that's like probably could be the biggest challenge here is finding the time to get on the schedule of the candidate, or if you are at an organization of your, of a spokesperson from your organization, is it your executive director? Is it the head of program, etc. But other than that, this probably, I don't know who knows how many takes they did, but they're just walking and talking. And this Q&A format is both, I think we're like sort of at an existential crisis of, are we creating internet content for the robots or for the people? What's nice about this is that this is actually for both. And the AI, the LLMs this is like something that can feed into the bots and help them. The Q&A is like pretty straightforward, but also this is content like the way a person will be entertained and watch this. And they threw in like some fun questions and some serious questions. So that makes it slightly more entertaining internet content, but also is like pretty straightforward. And, adding the music and the text on top of the video is not doesn't take a ton of video editing skills. And, I think it's key that they found good lighting and got on the schedule. But other than that, it's not like a wildly produced video. These are two examples of Q&As on your website. So Ballotpedia has these candidate surveys. If you've done candidate surveys with, organizations that have gotten endorsements, like I know a lot of organizations like Sierra Club and stuff do those. You could put those on your website, like add pages, add blogs where there's just more and more of these sort of Q&As there. Would be one thing to do. I pulled an example from REI that is, I think we'll drop the link. I think a really good example that it's a blog basically, but it has a lot of like direct questions and answers that someone might be kind of comparing and contrasting as they're deciding what rain jacket to wear, and that if they were doing their research in a chatbot, this is the kind of content that a chatbot would very easily pull. And these are very like questions someone might be comparing. So sort of put yourself in the shoes of voters and think about like, what are they comparing and contrasting? How are they, are there like things that they might be deciding your candidate versus the opponent, or to vote at all? What are those questions, and how can you produce more of that content on your website? How could you get that on websites of partner organizations that might validate you? How can you get that on your social media? And obviously, like something you put on your website, you can then repurpose as social media content and do a green screen where you have someone in front of it talking about this blog, for example, would be an easy way to kind of get that on social media. Awesome. So we might have time. Let's take a minute and open up Gemini. Go ahead and we'll drop it in the chat if you don't have it. Or you can use your preferred LLM if you are a Claude user or a ChatGPT user. I said Gemini just because it's one of the easier ones to access. And then go ahead and ask, does X candidate have a stance on flock cameras? What are the differences in their stances versus their opponent? You can either ask about your candidate, your organization, someone you might vote for. If you're not sure who to ask for, just pick someone you've been paying attention to, and just kind of see what comes up. On the screen is an example of my representative, the answer for on my where I would vote. Danielle said my candidate didn't, but someone in our city for another office did. Did the LLM tell you that, or is that just something you knew? Nice Google search. Yeah. Is anyone finding anything surprising in their Gemini response or helpful? Is anyone's bot telling them they can't answer it? Okay, Andres, very interesting. So it says you don't have a stance, but on the website there are a sentence or two on it specifically. So I think that's like a perfect learning here. So there's still time to figure out how to if you feel like this is an issue that's coming up in your election. Obviously you have finite time, finite capacity. So you want to focus on issues you think are going to make or break the election. And again, we don't really know, there's no like, if you do this, it'll definitely work. But if that is an important issue, this is a great time to think about, can you produce a little more content? Could you get a press hit? Could you work with a partner to put more out there? Could you, tell the bot the answer and see if you can get some other volunteers to start to influence its opinion? Or could you make social media content that says, hey, like, if your friends are learning about our candidate on AI, like it's providing misinformation. So just something to be considering in your research. And this is extremely new, and I think, in the long run, as ecosystem, we're going to have to determine like, does this kind of work fit into the research team? Does it fit into the comms team? Does it fit into the digital team? In the context of social media for GOTV, just you want to remember that you are a source of truth, you are a source of information, you are producing content that builds excitement, clarity, and helps people get out the vote. And so what you sort of learn about how the bots are presenting information about your candidate can just inform that social media strategy and like give you ideas of content to make or content to be focused on. Awesome. Christy got correct answers. Um, Yeah. So super interesting. And I think it's always a good idea to just kind of be Googling things you think voters will Google and to be now putting like questions into LLMs that voters will be Googling. Because that's how a lot of people make decisions. And you want to be working so that your information is informing their decisions and that persuasive, accurate information is informing their decisions. Okay, we are near the end of our time. So to recap, these are the 4 steps you should add to your to-do list today. Modify your approval process, gather existing resources from your campaign and the ecosystem, engage your volunteers in social media, finding local amplifiers, taking photos, and backwards plan. Pull out that calendar, think about election day, maybe even you think about a couple days after election day. Think about what kind of content you'd want to make, what it will take, what templates you should make, who you should ask to make videos, what's realistic, what additional capacity do you need to execute that. And with that, I will pause my time and see if there are any questions, Santiago. How are we doing on the question front?
We got one general question in the Q&A. I've seen a couple that maybe haven't made it over from the Q&A to the chat. I know there was a question on sort of the different, sort of emphasis on either images versus video in social media, and then also a question around music and usage of license, like, what's safe to use in terms of music, because there's some jams in there.
Awesome. Yeah, so video is Queen King right now and is great. People are building parasocial relationships with influencers and candidates online and putting your candidate on Instagram, on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and putting your campaign in video format is something that should be a part of all social media strategies. It is not easy to do. It is not always a part of it. With that said, photo slides do it in like video form. So like think about a TikTok where people are still scrolling the TikTok, but they can swipe through photos in the post, and the same with Instagram. Do can do really well. And um, I think the key to GOTV success during GOTV is going to be to produce content you can make fast. So like if it feels like it will take you 2 weeks to make a really good video, that might not be the right video for right now, even though it would be exciting to make. So definitely some video content, but don't like shy away from photos. I would still think about like the algorithm content. So like content that can show up in YouTube Shorts, content that can show up in Instagram Reels and TikToks, even if it's still with text on it, is I would definitely mix that into your content calendar. And then on the video front, like getting B-roll, which is just footage, that's just getting footage of people kind of doing stuff and not talking to the camera. Getting that either for yourself or from volunteers and just slicing that together with like a little text can also go a long way. But that example, like that example, the first example we looked at, where the candidate was reintroducing themselves, um, is like a kind of an interesting, it was photos, but they made a video out of those photos is like another way to think about things. In terms of music, the platforms are, yeah, there are some songs that are copyrighted. You can find when you create content, if you're making it in CapCut, which is one of the most common video editor tools, there's a lot of music in CapCut that you can use. And then on Instagram and TikTok, you can also search for music. And it just really depends. Like some songs you're not allowed to use, some you are. And you can, like, the easiest thing to do is just to find those songs inside the platforms that are already pre-approved versus like, if you have been making video content for over a decade, the song choice was like you'd have to download songs or buy them to use them. That's like not really a great use of time right now. And one of the best things you can do is identify trending audio on Instagram and TikTok. CapCut can also help you identify trending audio and put that trending audio behind your video or your photo slideshow. And then there are some limitations on the music you have access to as a professional account versus a personal account. So if Instagram or TikTok believe know you're a business, sometimes you're limited of sounds you have access to. And so that's just something to know before you like get really excited about an idea of a trending audio, or like that's an opportunity to work with a volunteer, have them make it and like repost it.
There's also a couple of questions, one in the Q&A, and I think there's one in the chat that is talking about like which platforms to prioritize. There's a whole host of things that we could post on. We got small teams. Deborah, any
Yeah,
thoughts?
man, you're telling me. Um, yeah, it does, and annoyingly answers it does sort of depend. If you have any more context, I welcome it in the chat. The um If you don't already have an Instagram account, I'm not sure I would start one right now. Um, I do think TikTok's algorithm is very powerful and like it's a certain demo of audience. I also think you want to think about like who your key voters are. Like if you're on a college campus, you should definitely be on TikTok and probably even Snapchat. If you're like, I wouldn't, Facebook remains one of the largest used platforms, and I think it's been like a little weirdly written off in the last couple of years, but it has reels and video stuff, and huge numbers of people are on that platform every day. So I would think about Facebook, which I didn't show you any examples of today, but all those reels that we looked at from Instagram can just be cross-posted to Facebook or posted on Facebook. Um, YouTube is like huge numbers of people learn information and search for things on YouTube. And it is not a platform historically Democrats have done a great job of winning on. So that's one thing to think about. I think do if you're a finite team and you're in a crunch period, do what you feel you can do well and just sort of promote those channels. Like people are gonna search, like look for you and just make sure that like they can find you, or if they go to your website and they're looking for your social accounts, like make sure those are linked there. Would be my advice. I think it's a real tough reality that only got worse when Musk bought Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky opened up. Are like there's exciting fun things happening there, but there's also it's like makes so much more work for people doing social media. So I don't think there's an easy answer. But don't try to do everything and do it poorly. And try to repurpose content for platforms and like don't worry about too much if it's not exactly the format that does well on that platform because you might not necessarily like unlock the algorithm or get lots of engagement, but someone might look you up there and find information about you, which is still helpful.
Yeah, there's another question along the same similar lines around like posting frequency. How much is, should we be doing? Is there too much? I think what you've said so far is like, what do you have capacity for to be able to do sustainably? And it also sounds like there's an aspect of like voters are going to look for you on these platforms. So like something being there is also just as important as maybe the frequency of it.
Definitely. And I would pin posts to the top of your feed of either like I would probably pin a post like introducing your candidate or reintroducing them and pin a post about how they vote on all those platforms. So so people might treat your social pages like websites and just like looking for information. Um, and I think that frequency is a little less important than having content on there about the things people are talking about. So like, is there a right-wing attack that's running TV ads about your candidate that's not true or something, or that you have a counter for? Is there content on your page about that? And then is there stuff about voting? Is there stuff introducing them? Because there's like sort of two strategies here. One is your stuff showing up in people's feeds in the algorithm, and the other is when people go look at your candidate they can see that information. And the third actually is that showing up in SEO and AEO. So I think I would stress less about like frequency and more about do we have stuff on our page that is building volunteer excitement, that is reacting to things that we should be reacting to, and that is taking a bold, positive stance about why people should vote for us. Um, but yeah, more is better. And during DOTV, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think there's the final question to just touch on is there was the question about responsiveness and like how do you
Yeah.
plan for those things when the craziness like is unexpected and could be anything from, all different angles. And I think to your point earlier in the training was like making sure that you have these templates, utilizing things from the toolbox to sort of set you up to like plug and play certain things as much as possible to show, sort of some of that relevant content as you close things out. But we're actually 2 minutes over, unless you have a closing thought there on that.
My
Kevin.
cousin, we did a training a couple weeks ago called Stop Posting Scared. And I think what it also comes down to approval processes. Like, can you get aligned with your comms team and your campaign manager and your candidate about the issues you do want to respond to? So, like, maybe you're never going to respond to an attack about something, but you're always going to respond to, attacks about your stance on immigration. Like, where are your red lines? What are you strongest on? And how can you like close that approval process so you're not like in a free like GOTV you can get kind of in like your sympathetic nervous system can be activated. Are you in fight, flight, freeze? And a lot of times people don't post stuff because they get in that freeze state. Like do everything you can to be like get out of that freeze state of like we don't know how to respond. Like these are the things we do, these are the things we don't. Again, if you check out Abdul Saeed's page, there's like a really great, I think he made this with like a firm, it's pretty highly produced, but he was getting attacks about like that he's not from Michigan. And there's a really great video of his grandparents who are white Michiganders talking about like countering that attack. So yeah, it's not easy, and I think it is where we like it. This is where some of the skill comes from, but I think the key is to like close the gap on that approval process. So there's how to like answer the question, are we going or not? And then you can figure out what to do because a lot of times teams get stuck in the are we going or not phase, not the like what should we respond phase. But with that, we are 3 minutes over time. It was lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming. Please download the toolbox tools. Let us know what other trainings would be helpful as we head into GOTV. And just a huge hearty thank you for all the work you're doing. This election is super important. Really exciting, innovative things are happening, and we hope you are a part of them. See you.
Huge shout out to Deborah for leading us on this training. Huge shout out to Myra for creating some of the resources that you all are getting access to. Thank you all for being here. Great to see you all. Have a great day. That's our show.